take on this beautiful Thursday morning as we are going into the holiday weekend, and very excited about all that, of course. But before we get there, let's go back to Tuesday when we had the Dow that was actually up triple digits early on, the first hour or so, and then it lost it, and it could not hold on to those gains. Well, yesterday, we were up triple digits, first hour or so of the day. We continued. We were up a couple of hundred points. We kind of flatlined up there for the majority of the day. And oh, by the way, we closed up 210 points. So a pretty nice performance yesterday from the Dow. And you look back over at the NASDAQ, and there's been so much focus on the NASDAQ. It has had some great runs and obviously hitting record levels. But when you just look back to Tuesday and Wednesday, a lot of movement, very choppy, but not really a whole lot in terms of where did we close. As a matter of fact, you go back to Tuesday, we finished up about 27 points. You go back to yesterday, we actually finished down about 25 points. So just a little bit of that interesting movement, very choppy, but getting a little bit better performance out of the Dow. And as a matter of fact, today, hitting new highs for the S&P 500 as well. So a lot going on underneath in terms of some of these record highs in different major indices. And that's something, of course, we're watching very, very carefully as we get through the first half of the year. And now here we are looking at the second half of the year. Pretty interesting. But look at the volatility index. You want to talk about interesting. We cannot seem to be able to sustain those higher volatilities. And when I say higher, not that much higher, not that explosive 30s and 40s on the VIX, but even over 20, we have had a hard time. We've had the volatility index pop up and very rapidly comes right back down to about where we are right now. Call it 15, 16. Nice volumes, however, yesterday. We were sitting right around 35.5 million contracts yesterday. So again, staying on this course, and we had a little bit weaker on Tuesday, but we were wondering, we were going to get a little bit more quiet as we get into the long weekend or not. Well, yesterday, pretty decent day, actually, when you look at that and you say 35.5 million, that's not a bad day. I take a look at what was really leading. Apple, number one, 1.1 million contracts. AMD, 1.1 million contracts. You had NEO with 950,000 contracts. What a nice day, and some nice unusual option activity yesterday that already produced. And Tesla, which about 900,000 contracts in there as well. So the volumes have been there, but it's nice, and it's getting a little bit more and more spread out. It's not just a couple of names. We are seeing a lot more contributors in this volume. Some of that may be the meme stocks or rebel stocks, as we're calling them. But there's a lot of different areas of the marketplace where we are seeing these option flows, certainly. Crude could not hold for a while. It got underneath that 74 level. That was something that stood out a little bit. And then we look over at Bitcoin, which is just in this very now, it seems like, a choppier range. Call it 33,000, maybe it's 34,000. You might even be able to slip up and say 33 to 35,000, but much more calm than we had been, certainly. But it's something interesting that we're always keeping a very close eye on, just to see what kind of volatility that we are seeing in that space, in that crypto space. So the names that stood out for me yesterday, AMD up 5%. That certainly had a powerful move. We talked about that yesterday. We had those great unusual options that were already starting to move, but early on, the unusual options elite program here at Market Rebellion, those hit very, very early in the session. A lot of people very happy about that, as that stock made a pretty nice move to the upside. Secondly, I got to hit on the energy trade. Now, even though oil sort of gave back some later in the day and underneath that 74, take a look at the XOP. Now, I use that, which I like individual names, but I'm using the ETF here because this is the ETF that I reference a lot of those names that I call the beta names. You look at the XOP, hitting those highs, that's pretty interesting. Up about a couple of percent yesterday. That was pretty interesting, by the way, adding to that today. And lastly, I think the SMH really stands out. Now, I mentioned AMD, but it's not just about AMD. It's all of those semiconductors for the most part, with the movement that we have been seeing and obviously hitting up and pushing on and establishing new records. We talked about the major indices. How about even just the semiconductors, just as a group? A pretty nice solid move. And we were talking about this yesterday when I was on Fast Money, and we were talking about just some of the strength that we have seen in that space. And going into the second half, are we going to need that? The answer is yes, in my opinion. We are going to have some of those semiconductors starting to produce along the way with us. Having a hard day today with Micron, which gave up some earnings last night. Earnings numbers were actually decent, pretty decent, but the selling pressure on Micron definitely showing up. So it made a nice move, a very nice move from where it was 2 weeks ago to yesterday going into that. So maybe some of that is part of what we are seeing. So when we start off today, again, we look over at the Dow, up about 70 points. NASDAQ not doing a whole lot. We open, we're up about 90 points. NASDAQ again, not doing a whole lot, down about 8 points or so. We're up or down 8, 10 points, it seems like, in this first hour or so. And I know it, and I say it every day, it's a long day, but we started to see the Dow kind of jump up even a little bit further, going towards that triple digit level once again. It's pulled back a little bit. As a matter of fact, I'll take it real quick. Yep, we've cut that in half. Now we're up about 56 points right now on the Dow. So we were up close to 100 points just minutes ago, and now up about 56 points. That's how this market has been moving. Crude oil, now that's been a storyline. We talked about that in the big movement. We pulled back under 74 today. We jumped up and over that 75 level in crude. 75.30 was the highest I saw. I'm sure there was maybe a higher print than that, but highest level since 2018. So let that absorb for just a second. We're talking about multiple years since we have seen these kinds of levels. Volatility still holding, as I said, 15, 16s. Yep, today right there in the 15s. So the sector, obviously, with energy trading and crude trading the way it is, the energy sector leading early on. Matter of fact, it was up about 2.25%. Last I looked, it was up about 2%. And take a look at the beta names and throw in some of the other big names as well. Chevron leading the Dow. You look over at ConocoPhillips, another bigger name. But you look at these beta names, these names that just can absolutely explode to the upside. Take a look at what some of these names are doing today, whether it's Occidental. Earlier, it was up about 5%. Halliburton was up about 3.5%, 4%. I had Schlumberger up about 3.5% or so. Doesn't stop there. You had Marathon, NOV, you had Baker Hughes, just across the board. And the XOP hit another new high today. So that just shows you just the kind of movement that we are seeing right now in the energy space. And behind that, you've got materials, you've got financials, which have really started to move a little bit now once again and starting to shift along with energy to the upside, although kind of easing back off of where they just were not too long ago. So some of the stocks that really stand out for me today, let's hit those. Walgreens, WBA, one of those names that's part of the Dow, of course. You take a look at that, and the earnings looked great. I'm looking at them right now. They raised guidance. That looked pretty great. Stock getting a pretty good hit. Stock was higher. Then it got a nice hit to the downside. It was down over 8%. I think it's well off of that low end, but certainly a focus today, because when you look at some of those numbers in the guidance, that stock taking a little bit of a hit on the chin. It has had a pretty nice run when you take a look at Walgreens. It really has been one of those performers. So the stay-at-home stocks really kind of are puzzling and interesting to see today, because I take a look over and take a look at Peloton, take a look at Netflix, take a look at Zoom, all performing very nicely today. And it just kind of sticks out a little bit, because when you're looking for, okay, what's working, what's not, and you see a lot of these stay-at-homes. Now, it's not just about that. I actually saw some nice performance in some casino stocks and so forth, but this just kind of is a little bit of a head scratcher as we are moving away, hopefully. And as a matter of fact, when you look at those jobless claims, this was the lowest level of those claims in the pandemic. So when it's under 400,000, it was under the estimates that they had. I think it was 360,000 or thereabouts. So really, those numbers starting to show that, we are getting ourselves in position to get a little bit more into the normalcy. But so it's interesting to see some of that movement that we'd seen there. So let's hit a couple of unusuals, and that's going to be it. Discovery's number one. Now, this one I think is interesting. I had a different stock in there, but July 2nd expiring, I was going to go with that, but I decided, you know what, let's get something where we have a little bit more time and a little bit more on the expiry. So Discovery was the name I pulled up. 3171 is where the stock was trading at the time of a buyer of 10,000 of the August, which in this particular market, that's going out a ways, the August 37.5 calls. So 10,000 of those, 45 cents up to about 85 cents. Looking for a nice strong move to the upside out of Discovery. A name that doesn't hit all that frequently either, so that also makes it somewhat unusual. Smith & Wesson's my number two choice. Now this one's pretty interesting because it's a name that I've liked for a really long time. in that whole area that we look at. And a lot of people are against some of the trades and whatever and all the rest of that. But I will tell you, some definite unusual activity here in Smith & Wesson. 39 1/4 is where the stock was trading. We had a buyer of 7,300 of the July 40 calls. So not that far out of the money. As a matter of fact, almost an at the money call, meaning that it's just about where the stock is trading right now. Those were going for 85 cents up to about $2. So looking at this name, and can it make a move like this? Sure it can. We've looked at a lot of these various stocks over time. We've had some great movements lately in individual names, absolutely. When you look over at the NASDAQ, the movement, as I said, it's been choppy, it's been very tight, and we haven't had as explosive moves as we had been seeing, at least over the last couple of sessions. But we're seeing incredible amounts of unusual activity. Folks, have a great day of trading. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And hopefully you had a chance to watch Fast Money last night. We had a lot of fun on that. We had a lot of good conversations on a lot of different things, the NCAA, everything else. But until then, I will look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning on the tape.